like the SRE community generally is very skeptical about LLMs.
Yes, of
Right?
course.
Non-deterministic, this stuff makes mistake, as we just discussed.
Yes.
But the truth is, humans have been screwing up forever, right? It's the same. It's the same thing. Humans have been screwing up. LLM are screwing up. I don't know if it's less or more, but much faster. That's for sure.
Welcome to the Reliability Rebels podcast, where we improve production by challenging the status quo. Your host, Amin Astani from Cherto Modo.
Check one, check two.
Reliability Rebels.
Check one, check two.
Reliability Rebels.
Check, 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 check.
Reliability Rebels.
Welcome to the Reliability Rebels podcast, where we explore how to make software and systems more reliable by challenging the status quo. I'm your host, Amin Astani. Let's say you're an SRE. You spent the last decade eliminating toil, writing runbooks, and writing software to replace repetitive manual tasks. But here's what's changed. Software engineering teams, augmented with AI agents, can ship code faster than your team can operate it. Deployment rate climbs, service count multiplies, and now you're managing infrastructure complexity that used to take years to accumulate by much larger companies. That toil you automated away, it's back with a vengeance. Now, the industry's answer is to fight fire with fire. When I attended KubeCon Amsterdam recently, every other booth was pitching an AI SRE, agents that triage incidents, run diagnostics, and so on. I was walking the expo floor and asked vendors, how is yours different from the 10 other booths offering the same thing? Most couldn't answer. They're scanning some infrastructure, they're dumping it into an LLM, and then what? When I asked about accuracy on novel production incidents, the answers got vague fast. So here's the big question. Are LLMs actually the right tool for operational work? Where do they add value? Where do they fall apart? If we start handing operational responsibility to agents, what precisely are we delegating and what capabilities do we potentially lose as humans? If we only see the hardest problems while not doing the reps on the basics, what does operational maturity look like in 5 years? My guest is Sylvain Kalache, head of AI labs at Rootly, developing AI-driven open source reliability tools. Before Rootly, he was a senior SRE at LinkedIn. He was also a co-founder of Holberton School that provides training for software engineers, many of which now work at major tech companies. Sylvain, great to have you on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Oh, 100%. This is going to be a blast. Looking forward to it already. So please give us a brief introduction. So you have SRE experience, obviously, but you also have this entrepreneurial streak, not a common combination. So what drew you from running production systems at LinkedIn, then building a school, then work as a consultant, and now back to working for a vendor doing reliability tooling?
Yeah. So I started my career before public cloud were a thing, crawling in data center floors to lay cable and rack hardware, right?
Yeah.
You still remember the sounds, of the fans.
Oh, yeah.
I started this in France and moved to Silicon Valley, where I really started my career, was an SRE, as you mentioned, at SlideShare, then spent some time at LinkedIn. And while I was doing this with a friend of mine, we co-created a community called Wild42, which is network of French and French-speaking software engineers. In Silicon Valley, you have 60,000 French people, but they don't talk to each other.
Yeah.
So we decided to create this group where people would meet in person and basically just share about mostly work, obviously, but it grew very fast. People really like the in-person aspect of the community versus always online stuff.
For sure.
And this group grew to over 30 cities around the world. People really liked the format. They were like, oh, I want to launch, to do my own, the name of the community is called Wild42, my own Wild42 in my city, right? So we scaled this, all the way from the west coast of the US to Japan. And so we were in touch with over like 30 major tech communities in the world. And the thing that we were always hearing is, I can't hire enough software engineers, right?
Yeah.
And people were always saying, I'm hiring, which back then was like, go away, it's spam.
Right.
Right?
Changed.
Exactly. So with my friend, we are like, like something has to be done here. And at the same time as when we launched it, I was an SRE at LinkedIn, and so I was doing interviews. I would interview talent coming out of college. So they studied like 4 years, nearly half a decade of their life. And they were clearly not prepared to take on the job, right? So we're like, you spend like sometime like 200 grand on an education, spend like half a decade, and you are not prepared for the job, something is wrong, right? So based on this two kind of data point, we decided to do something about it, and then created Holberton School, which now is operating in 25 countries. And yeah, one of the curriculum was very specific, was a learning project-based approach where you learn without like formal teacher and lecture. And I had like an SRE track.
Oh, nice.
So a lot of my students ended up becoming SREs, which is something generally people stumble upon, right, rather than train for.
For sure.
And so that's kind of the story up to Holberton.
Wow. Yeah, I really do appreciate like this people-oriented thread throughout your career where it's like, hey, there's a problem. Let's go solve the problem. There's a community of people that would benefit from this. So that's pretty admirable. I like that stuff.
If you're responsible for a SaaS product and you've been dealing with reliability issues, maybe you migrated to the cloud, rolled out microservices, even hired DevOps or SRE specialists, but you're still seeing incidents and slow delivery, you're not wrong for being frustrated. And you're not wrong for trying those things. It seems like every conference talk and blog post recommends them. Here's what host Amin Astani has learned: reliability problems are rarely technical. They're organizational. That's why he created the rapid assessment. It diagnoses what's actually broken, for one flat rate. Learn more at chertomodo.io. Thanks for listening.
All right, so fast forward to Rootly. So you're now running Rootly AI Labs. They're doing open source research. It's sponsored by Anthropic. It's sponsored by Google. So what problems are you tackling that require that level of backing? And why open source instead of trying to productize it? And to be clear, I think open source is the right approach, but I'm really interested in the logic and goals.
Yeah. Well, I was speaking with my CEO, JJ Tung, and we were looking at the situation back in 2025 when I joined Rootly, and we were like, there are kind of two ways to approach this AI wave, right? Like, let's call it a wave. It's just massive. Like, either you kind of like witness it and, try to like basically consume it, or you lead this exploration, right? Like, you actively look for the next frontier. You actively explore what we can do with these tools.
Yes.
And I think there is still a lot of exploration that's happening, and the exploration is going very fast. And more specifically, we saw that there is a gap in the reliability space. Most of the toolings, most of the exploration is done in the coding and the building phase, right? But to your point, for operation, I think there is still a lot to be done, and back then there were even more to be done, right? So we decided to take the stance of being leader and part of the explorer team, if I may say, and second, to do this in the field of reliability and operation. And so, like we, Rootly, among with our partner, as you mentioned, is funding this. We are not making everything we build is open source. We build in the open, so it's a bunch of prototypes. Sometimes the prototypes are we show them, and then turns out they are not useful, but we tried, right?
Yeah.
Right, which is part of the game.
Yes, it is.
Sometimes these prototypes turn out to be useful, so we maintain them. And we do a lot of research. So everything we do is shared with our community.
Yeah.
And the goal is really to understand what AI can bring to SREs, platform engineer, DevOps practitioner, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. That's awesome. You remind me of like, do you remember Xerox PARC or Bell Labs from the 1970s? Like there was so much innovation that came from groups like that. And it was like a large company that's going to say, hey, we're going to have a skunk works here in the corner and we're going to develop things and see what works. The modem came from that.
Yeah. Wow.
Right.
No, I didn't know that.
Right. So like that, it's really cool to see a company like Rootly say, hey, obviously we have a skills gap or a technology gap for us operators. Let's spend some time figuring out what's out there. I think that's awesome. And sounds like a really fun job, to be honest.
It is. I'm very lucky to have this job because it's at the intersection. As you said, my career has been like really people-centric.
Yeah.
Right? Like I created this community and then I created a school, which is obviously all about people.
Yeah.
And then, the AI lab is a mix of engineering leadership, but also community and communication. And so, it's, I'm having a blast.
Yeah. Rock on. No, it's good stuff. So when we were planning this episode, you provided, a data point that was pretty interesting. Since you work for Rootly, you have access to this data. You mentioned, now make sure I got this right, that the average incident per user on the platform has tripled since 2023. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's significant, right? So walk me through, what do you think's happening? Like, is it just that we're seeing more incidents? Are we seeing different kinds of incidents? Or are teams getting more sensitive to failure modes that maybe they were missing in the past? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, ultimately, correlation is not causation, right? So I think we need to be careful with that.
Certainly.
But actually, I looked at this specific data point because I was invited to give a talk at the Google SRE New York City Tech Talk on the impact of AI on operation teams.
Yeah.
And if you look at the rough formula of your incident rate, it's the number of changes that you bring to a system times the probability that one of these change is gonna break it.
Yeah.
So you have like two variables, and so the number of change that today we are bringing to our system is like exploding.
Yes.
Right? Because of Gen AI, right? Like developers are able to ship much faster, in greater volume. So statistically, the number of incidents should increase.
Yes.
Now, I was like, okay, that's a theory, right? So let me look at in practice. And to your point, I was able to look this in our customer data, and it indeed increased by 3 since 2023. And I picked 2023 because that's when Gen AI started, roughly.
Yeah.
So now, like, I don't have the exact explanation about why this is happening. But if you've been looking at the news recently,
oh yeah,
right. Actually, a few hours before I delivered this talk in New York, Amazon called an all hands meeting for the engineers.
Yes.
Saying, hey, like, time out, like, we need to talk. Like, we've been having a lot of outages, and it's a variety of reasons. But Gen AI was, pointed out, and they were like, yeah, like, we don't really master the craft of doing reliable software with Gen AI, and so we need to do something about it. So, I don't have like the exact explanation, but like Amazon and there are other news that came out since then mentioning this lack of reliability, and so I think we can, with certain confidence, say that Gen AI is making our system like less reliable and less stable.
Yes, sure. Correlation is not causation, to your point, but with such a major introduction of a new technology, a new process, and teams going all in on it, and then seeing the results from it, especially this past quarter. Like I was recently seeing that, for example, GitHub has had a lot of struggles, and the reliability metrics that they have, and even like a third party tool that's exposing the reliability metrics isn't super promising. So obviously something's changed, and there's definitely a shift here.
And if you look at Anthropic, which is the leading company now
Yes.
by far in the AI space, if you look at their status page, it's a Christmas tree, right? So
Yes, that too. Them too. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a brave new world. We've introduced a new piece of technology, and now our reliability has tanked. So we have to respond.
exactly, yeah. I think it's all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, rock on. That's really cool. So let's get into. We got the challenge established. Hey, we're shipping more often than ever. The big wave, the tsunami has hit. We're starting to deal with some gaps. So you're working on building SRE tools. You're doing this while, we're also arguing, hey, SRE's job is getting harder because of AI generated code. We've established this. So I agree, with that premise. But help our listeners understand a little bit. So if AI is helping create this problem, how can AI be part of the solution and not, let's say, hey, let's go read the old DevOps books and make sure that we're actually doing the better processes and the guardrails and what we ship to production. Like, where do you feel that the AI is part of the solution here?
Yeah. So first, so before speaking about AI, I just want to speak about all the guardrails that we've been developing as an industry for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Most of them are still relevant. And if you didn't have this foundation right, now you will probably suffer, right? Because if you were not able to handle your reliability and resilience with a much lower volume of changes to your system, now with this increased volume, like probably you are suffering. So most of these guardrails are not only still important, but crucial now, like even more important, right?
Oh, yeah.
But to your point, this Gen AI is really changing the game. And so I think it's a situation where if you cannot beat them, you should join them. I think what caused the issue here has to be used to solve it. Like like you need to use AI to solve the problem that's caused by AI. Let me give you an example. Let's say back in the days when you had an incident, let's say a serious incident, like a save zero, the company site is down, and you can't solve it, you would do a git blame, find who built the system and be like, hey, come help me solve this incident. Now the answer you may get is, sorry, mate, like I didn't really build that. Like I prompted my agent. I know nothing about this code. And so, good luck, right?
Yep.
So, and then the same thing would apply. Let's say you have like an incident where it's complex. You have a PostgreSQL, outage, and you need someone who is like really good at this. Gen AI tends to make us all generalists. Like engineers now are asked to do all the full stack stuff that we spoke about since now a decade, the full stack software engineer, but now even more, right? Product management and design and so on and so forth. And so you will also have less luck finding this expert in some like specific technology that can be very useful during an outage. So to summarize, you may have to solve more volume of incidents, as we just discussed, with less help, while your manager is like, hey, chop, you need to do more, right?
Yeah.
Because you have AI, right? So you should, like everybody's doing more, you should do more. So I think it's a very challenging situation SRE are in now. And so I think that to handle this volume and this lack of help that SRE have to face, obviously these LLMs can also help you to troubleshoot this incident in the first place. And as you say, there is like a lot of AI SRE on the market, and I think they are going to be key, and they're going to be part of any production team toolbox like very soon.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel that right now, like AI SRE, they're tackling the bottom of the reliability pyramid. On this show, I sometimes mention Mikey Dickerson's reliability pyramid, and what's on the bottom, the monitoring and metrics, and then incident response. It's the most like painful bit of being, an SRE. So it's reasonable to say, well, let's tackle on call. But let's think about other responsibilities now. And for example, you're building something called the SRE skills bench, right? And what this thing is, and I took a look at the site that you shared with me prior to this call, and it's really, really interesting. You're evaluating models on SRE specific tasks, which I found really, really interesting. So, and I think right now it's like one of Google's models is the top scoring one. But as you're doing these evaluations, give me an example of some tasks where models are failing in ways that are very surprising to you, and extrapolate to what that tells us about the limits of LLMs handling operations tasks. Because right now, AI SRE is incident response. Can it do everything? Where is the boundary in terms of LLM capability in this world?
Yeah. So yeah, the premise of SRE Skills Bench was to provide an alternative to SWE Bench, which is like the most popular benchmark for developers, but to your point, for SREs. And we started with, I would say mostly like the building part of SREs, or like the knowledge part.
Yep.
The first part was really about knowledge, and then the building was like, hey, can you build like, let's say like an infrastructure with, I don't know, two zones and a bunch of servers, right? And some security policy and a VPN between them and whatnot. All of this, the LLMs got to a point that they are like so good that the benchmark are saturated, and we are reaching like the 95+%. So basically, our benchmark became obsolete.
Wow.
For the most part, and for the frontier model, like the latest, like as of today, like the Opus 4.6, which are obviously very expensive, but still, like I think it speaks to the capabilities of the technology now. Where it's failing, so we did a V1, a V2, now we are doing a V3. And the V3 is specifically actually about incident management and troubleshooting. And what we do is that we provide the models with access to an application that is running on this distributed infrastructure, and we inject a failure, right? A bit like Chaos Monkey.
Yeah.
And then we push the agent to like solve it, and it access to like tools like MCP and whatnot. So where we are seeing it failing, I would say one of them is the classic. We just spoke about this, like causation is not correlation.
Yeah.
Which is often hard for junior software engineer, or when you join a company and you don't really have this instinct about how a system behave.
Yes.
You may see some metrics and you may like, oh, that's the issue, but it's right. It's not the issue. It's a consequence, right? It's not the cause.
Yes, that's right.
And so models are falling in this trap. Like another one is cascading failure. This one, like we are managing to get LLMs to fail, and sometimes the other section is the obvious are not working. So one very classic, which is a joke, is like it's not DNS. DNS is not.
Yeah, sure.
I tell that it was DNS, right?
It's always DNS, 100%.
So this type of thing, like like stuff like DNS, which you expect to work, and the model do expect to work, won't check about this. So I think for now, and the V3 is still being developed. It's not released yet. So we are gonna release it soon on our repo. But I think we are at like 60% success rate on the V3 benchmark, and obviously we are trying to bring this score down. But yeah, the idea is to, and I think that speaks to the AI SREs. That's why these AI SRE tools are interesting, because just raw LLM won't cut it.
Yeah.
You need more than just this. And the second thing, like interest of SRE Skills Bench is that if you are an SRE and you are wondering which model you should use in your coding assistant or backend automation, SRE Skill Bench can give you some indication of which of the latest model has the best performance.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'll definitely link that in the show notes so people can get into it and take a look at the table and start comparing and contrasting. Now that's really interesting. Yeah, what you answered to me rings true. I can remember back to a time where it's like, oh, I'm running a LAMP stack website. Oh, the CPU on the database server is maxed out. Well, maybe I should just add more CPU to the database server. No, it's actually the queries and the way that we are writing queries against MySQL that is creating this CPU. And you can add as many CPU resources as you want. It's not going to solve the problem. And yeah, there is like this unbounded context. So what it's like the information that you're not feeding to the LLM sometimes is the realm where the solutions are. To your example about, well, what if it's the DNS service that we're all dependent on, or third-party API that we're dependent on? You're not feeding it that information, so it isn't necessarily pointing at it when you're doing the investigation. Okay.
Yeah. And maybe if I may add, I think what's
Please.
interesting about this AI SREs tools, actually, a side note, there is a fellow from Anthropic who gave a talk recently at, I think it's QCOM in London,
Okay.
about how they use and his name is Alex Palchui. I don't know if I think I butchered his name, but we can also link this in the description of the talk. But
Yes, please.
he's a reliability leader at Anthropic, and he gave a talk about how he's using Claude to help in troubleshoot production. And he had some success with it, but also he was sharing about all the failure, which are obviously all the most interesting bits. And yes, I think one of the interesting part of this AI SRE tools is that, to your point, there is a lot of information that you need to know as an SRE to be able to troubleshoot a production incident, which might be like side stuff, right?
Yes.
Which is not in your logs,
Yes.
but might be in a conversation that happened on Slack where your coworker told you about some specificity about the infrastructure, or maybe it's in a run book, or maybe it's in a post-mortem. And if you've been at the company long enough, you know all of that, right? Right. And so when there is an incident, you have this instinct of knowing where to look, and you kind of know how your system works. And so the best AI SRE tool out there will add this knowledge. For instance, the one we built at Rootly, when you set it up, it's going to take a day or two to index all of this. It's ingesting like all the knowledge that it can possibly get a grab on, so it can kind of develop this tribal knowledge that we human have.
Yes.
So that right when there is an incident, it's a mix of grabbing the right fresh context from your monitoring and telemetry, but also using all this like tribal knowledge about how your system behave, and all this knowledge that you need to just ingest ahead of time, so that when an incident happens, like you are prepared.
Yes. Something comes to mind. It's as if these agents in some ways are reflecting the already existing maturity of your system. So for example, if you had well-defined runbooks, if you had well-defined architecture diagrams, if you were documenting your code, if you were doing all the things that we SRE practitioners have been preaching for years, if you did that, then the agent would have the best chance to give you a valid answer and a successful troubleshoot. It's just really interesting how we've been right all along.
That should be the quote of the quote of this episode. We've been right all along,
We've been right. We've been
100%.
telling you for
Yeah,
decades. We've been right
told you.
all along.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, reliability people are generally told you people. Recently, I shared about a gentleman within education. Unfortunately, dropped his production database because he hooked up his Claude code to some Terraform, and he just swiped laptop, didn't have the right state, and for some obscure reason, his backup didn't work.
Oh, no.
And his name is Alexei. And I really, actually, I'm very, I want to thank him for sharing this with the community,
Yeah.
because a lot of people were like saying, how could you do that? And so on and so forth. But it was, brave of him to share this with us so we can learn from his mistake. But yeah, and a lot of people were, I told you so that this would happen, and so on and so forth. So the community is really good, with doing that. But yeah, we've been doing things right now. I think it's time to equip the agents with the same, right, like boundaries and knowledge that we've been preaching as humans. And when SREs are like, there is no way I can let, like the SRE community generally is very skeptical about LLMs.
Yes, of
right?
course.
Non-deterministic, this stuff makes mistake, as we just discussed.
Yes.
But the truth is humans have been screwing up forever, right? It's the same thing. Humans have been screwing up, LLM are screwing up. I don't know if it's less or more, but much faster, that's for sure.
Yes. They have
but
more
it
tries at
shouldn't-
that.
Exactly, right? But it should not matter if the code is written by a human or a machine. Like your guardrail and your resilient process should catch it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Hey, we make mistakes. This system makes mistakes. What's the difference? It's going to take me a few days to chew on that point. That's a good one for sure. Okay, so let's continue our line of discussion around, okay, we have these LLMs, they have limited capabilities, we can feed them context. The better we do that, we'll get better results. But the current frontier is sub-zero. You mentioned, hey, if I have a major incident that is involving a distributed system, the agent can't really get us there right now. Do you think that is a fundamental limit with the technology, or do you think that maybe it's just a gap for the moment? Maybe we'll see improvement in a couple years. Like, what's your prediction? Do you think that LLMs can handle complex incident management in the long game?
Yeah, so SRE Skill Bench is assessing raw LLMs. Like we don't assess AI SREs, tools which are like agentic solution that use LLM, but not just LLMs. So
right.
These AI SRE are already better at it than these raw LLMs.
Right.
It's just my opinion, right? For what it was, it's very hard to come with like any prediction at this point. Like no one knows.
Everything changes.
Right, but I think my instinct is that for the most part, writing code is, I don't want to say figured out, but it's already well underway, right? Like it's like, okay, like some people were like, oh, look at Claude code base, it's very dirty and so on, and there's some fun stuff.
Yes.
But when you look at it, like this stuff is used by millions of developers in prod, and I don't think people love Claude code. So even though the code is like dirty,
yeah,
it's working, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is not a product endorsement, but I do use it, and it works for many different applications that I use it for. That is true.
Now, reliability, I think, is a different beast, and so I think it's gonna take some time, and sometime, might be like a year or two. Like I'm not speaking like 10 years, but I think we still have some time before LLM and even AI series are able to like really get to this complicated sub-zero incident. And I don't know, we'll see. For now, like the tech is the limitation. Mm-hmm. I think in some cases the context might be the limitation, like the lack of context. Mm-hmm. And so to your point, as human, or as not only human, but our system need to be good at documenting and making this context available, right? And if it's not, then there is no way around this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's again very, very interesting how those operational fundamentals become even more important now. Okay. Let's fast forward 2 years. These things become like handling sub-zeros, these AI SRE tools are able to solve these problems. So what happens to the humans now, right? So like what happens to those SREs and senior engineers that have been spending that time really focusing on only the hard stuff, right? So when we're introducing this technology that's handling a lot of the trivial types of problems, do we as practitioners that are handling everything that's left over, do we stay sharp, or are we going to start atrophying in the foundational skills that make them good at the hard stuff? Like, are we going to forget how SSH works? Are we going to forget how to interpret top? Like, what are your thoughts about
Yeah, that's a very
the
good
atrophy?
question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this question could be on operation, could be on the next generation of software engineer. I think that's an even broader question, that we are not allowing the new generation to understand the fundamentals.
Yes.
I think when it comes to operation, for sure, like to your point, if you are not handling the save 3, save 2, save 1, and you don't get kind of like develop this tribal knowledge and this familiarity with your system, when it's the fan and your AI agent is like not able to find the issue, you are on your own. And it's during an incident is not the time when you need to be reading your runbook and learn about your system and so on and so forth. So
Right.
I don't know. I think there's going to be a transition period that's going to be painful.
Yeah.
And so, again, I'm expecting that we'll see more of these like incidents, to major services that are going to happen more and more, and
Yeah.
where it might take some time for the engineer to solve them. It's going to depend on how good the LM and agentic technology is going to become, like from the time we kind of become rusty, and that maybe the technology is going to improve fast enough that we are not going to really see much of these serious incidents that are not solved. But yeah, I think it's a strong possibility that this is going to happen. And then there is a bigger question on even for young talent, people who are in the industry, like where is the room to grow?
Yeah.
Is it even needed? Maybe we won't even need that, it's like saying like people don't know assembly. No one does assembly, right? Like, and it's no longer relevant. So, maybe we are the old fart now, which like, oh, back in the day, right? Like we're doing this, and yeah, man, this is no longer useful. So yeah, time will tell.
We are definitely two men yelling at the cloud right now, two old men yelling at the cloud right now. Like that is very much the vibe of this episode, and I'm really enjoying it. Talking about data centers and stuff. I feel like that trend that you're describing has been happening for a while, but with agentic, it's hit a fever pitch. So I'll give you an example. So in the ancient days that both of us occupied, if we're troubleshooting a production system, we can SSH into it. We can run PS. We can see what processes are running. We can see the resources running on it. We can even go sophisticated and run a system call tracer. We can be like, oh yeah, here's a system calls that this process is running. I understand what it's doing. I can see where it's failing, and we can do that. That mode of behavior has happened less and less with the introduction of, let's say, like our observability vendors, where it's like, oh, I have dashboards. I can see my CPU utilization right here. I have my traces. But if your telemetry is incomplete, you have to go back to the source. And now we have engineers that they're like, I don't have an SSH key on the system. I can't get in there. I don't know where in the Linux directory structure to look. So I feel like we were already at this place. But now with agents that are writing code for us, I think the problem is compounded, because it isn't just the infrastructure now. It's also like the code, how it's structured, maybe the algorithms used. So you're right. I feel that are we going to allow junior engineers, people that are trying to break into this career, to take the time to learn computer science and get the skills so that they can go deep when necessary? it's an interesting problem.
Yeah, yeah, and I think no one has the answer here. I think there are going to be two types of talents in the tech industry. The like can do everything type,
Generalists.
right? And here we are speaking like much broader generalists than what we are today. Even when I speak to customer and friends at large companies,
Mhm.
they are expected to do everything. Even in large organizations, like engineers are asked to do the full stack, including project management,
Yeah.
including UX UI, and they're like, this is crazy. Like it's so draining. But yeah, and then the second type is gonna be the people who are we still need to know like the very depth of like system like very well or code base very well, because there are some very specific or some industry where it's very time sensitive or very critical that this stuff works. I don't know, aviation,
Yeah.
finance, healthcare, right? Like we cannot take a chance. Hopefully, like the industry is gonna be serious enough to not like take this lightly. Where here
Yeah.
we'll need people who are still like close to their stack.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a very interesting point. The intersection between healthcare and agentic software development, the intersection between aviation and agentic software development. Like to me, I feel like, oh, maybe not do that yet because people's lives depend on this. So maybe there's some clean room implementation requirements for those industries, but yeah, it's a brave new world, and I feel that we are going to need those specialists, those people that know the technology in order to keep us safe, because the layers of abstraction are just it's just hurdles all the way down.
Yeah, and if GitHub is down and you cannot push your code for 1 hour, doesn't matter, right? But if the speed
Yeah,
sensor on the plane stop working, like this is not okay.
yeah, exactly. The reliability requirements for building buildings, airplanes, and medical devices are just way order of magnitude more important than us just building websites with cat pictures in them. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
And I feel like at the end of the day, all of us are just building cat picture websites.
Yes, I have. Before we jump on the next point, I have a good anecdote about that.
Please, let's do it.
So I gave this talk at SRECon, and the talk premise was like I wanted to see how LLM are screwing up, so we can have a good loss about it, and I can show SREs like how the new type of stuff they can handle, and some research team found that, let's say you give an LLM a problem set. Let's say it's a geometry problem. Like you have a triangle with like whatever, this side, and you need to calculate the surface or something like this. And then at the end of the problem, you put a quote saying cats sleep for most of their life. You give this to a human. The human will be like, what's this thing about cat? Like maybe it's just a typo, or the teacher wanted to be funny. I'll just ignore it and solve the geometry problem. For LLMs, at least back then, now I don't know, but they were like twice as likely to fail the assignment if you were speaking about cats because they got distracted. So yeah, we've been distracted by cats all this time, and LLMs are too.
Yeah, LLMs are just as susceptible to cat based distractions. That's amazing. I'm gonna have to try that against some models and see what happens there. But that's wild. That is absolutely wild. All right, so to take this plane down for a landing, let's talk about an interesting topic about the use of LLMs in our daily life as knowledge workers. So here's a potential consequence: coding, problem solving. So you shared a post with me before this call about someone who couldn't stop working on Claude Code, like prompting Claude Code. They're staying up all night. They needed sleep medication.
Yeah.
They considered it like an addiction. And you made a strong point about this. You said that this was an epidemic that's coming.
Yeah.
So if these types of tools create, this kind of compulsive behavior where we're just getting that dopamine hit, what does responsible design and use even look like?
Yeah. Yeah, so this person is named Quentin Rousseau, is the co-founder and CTO of Rootly. And one day he shared this blog post, and when I read it, I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. So he shared, to your point, he could not sleep because he was like so addicted to building, with these tools.
Yeah.
And he had to go see a doctor and ask for the doctor prescribe some sleeping pills. And actually, he's not alone. YC, the YC Combinator CEO Gary Ten also shared about that on his Twitter.
Wow.
And he said, hey, like I stayed like 19 hours up last night and I could not sleep until 5 a.m. because I could not stop building. I personally experienced a similar effect last year when we were rushing to release one of our open source tool to make it GA.
Yeah.
And really wanted to get it done by the deadline. And I was like hardcore, like night, weekends, using this tool nonstop. And I felt this addiction and it scared me. I didn't think most of it. I was like, wow, I need to back down from this. But then when I saw my CTO post, I was like, that's what happened to me in a smaller, thankfully I stopped. I didn't have to go to see a doctor. If you're interested about this, actually, Axios just wrote about this yesterday. An article from Megan Moron, we can share the link, where she shared all of that. She got a bunch of testimony from engineering leader, including Rootly CTO. And so actually at Rootly, at the AI labs more specifically, we've seen this coming. Our focus, the community we look after the most is operation people, SREs, platform engineers. So we built a tool which is completely free and open source. It's called On-Call Health. And it's a tool that's designed to help capture signal that may show that someone is overworked and maybe at the risk of burnout. And we built this specifically for incident responders. And it's looking at things like, hey, like how many incidents did you manage? What severity? Were you up at night? Do you have a lot of tasks piling up in your Jira or Linear? Things like this. And then we also send a small survey on Slack asking periodically, hey, how do you feel?
Sure.
We leverage the same methodology that Apple is using for their Apple Watch. That's used in the medical field. And recently, we also added the ability to track token consumption. Ooh. And now here is the interesting thing. When Coding Assistant really picked up in 2025, what we were doing at Rootly is that we were monitoring token consumption, but we were making sure that engineers were using enough of their tokens. Why? Because we believed that this was the way forward. Back then, it was still not kind of like obvious that this was the right call, but we believed in it. And I think a lot of software engineers were like skeptical, or they didn't know how to get started, or they're like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know my job. I don't need help. Yeah. And we thought that, we wanted them to at least giving a shot. So we were looking at token consumption. And if the consumption was low, we would have a conversation with them and be like, hey, can we help you? Maybe I can show you how I use tools, or, just have a conversation and understand. Now we do the opposite, where we make sure if people use a lot of tokens, we just go and make sure they are okay.
Wow.
Right? We don't want them to be falling in the same trap that our CTO felt in. And we want to make sure that they are not developing this addiction. And I think it's an epidemic coming.
Wow.
it's gonna first spread among tech workers,
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
it's gonna spread among the knowledge workforce. We could feel potential similar effect. I think the coding and building addiction might be the strongest. It's
Yes.
just my rough opinion, right? But
Yes.
yeah, I think it could be expanded to other white collar professionals.
Yeah. No, I think you're painting a very clear and accurate picture. It's very interesting because, right, like as companies were starting to adopt LLMs and trying to figure out where they can get efficiency increases, they wanted their staff to use it and make sure they're at least trying. I find it very interesting that now you're looking at the upper bar. It's not the low bar now, it's the high bar. Like, oh, we're exceeding a certain threshold. Well, are you all right? What's going on there? Um, and the allure is real. Like I remember building a web service for some of my marketing materials for my company over the course of a day, and I'm like, oh, here's the requirements for this thing, and oh, this is the post request you need to respond to, and oh, hook it up to this thing, and hey, let's do a threat model. Like the idea to manifestation in code, the cycles are so short that you can just sit there and you can just build, 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 build. And I remember building a web service in a day. And thank goodness that like I had other things I needed to do that took me away from that loop. But yeah, the flow state, it's real. It's 100% real. And I'm really happy that you brought this as a topic to discuss. I think more people should be discussing it. I think mental health is really important in tech. Burnout was already a problem. Now we're creating new sources where that could take place. All right. Well, this was a killer conversation. I'm really happy that you joined me for this. So, how should people reach you, Sylvain, if they have questions about Rootly or the AI labs or like just how to use AI for ops in general? Like, how should people reach you with questions?
Yeah. If you want to reach out to me specifically, I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you are interested in learning more about the lab, as just to check out our work, you can go on our GitHub page, Rootly AI Labs. That's where we share all our projects. We share learnings on our blog. We have LinkedIn and Twitter. We also post stuff on YouTube. So pretty much, all the classic channels. And yeah, it's open source. So we work with Philos. So all the folks on the AI labs are contributor to the project, and it's a mix of like very young talent who are still in university, and we have also engineers who've been in the industry, for let's say 2 or 3 decades. We have the head of infrastructure at Weight and Biases, the former head of AI at Twilio, and so on and so forth. And think of it as like a constant hackathon where we have fun and try stuff. And the goal is really exploration and building cool open source projects for the community. And maybe one of these projects is gonna be the modem.
Yeah,
As
right.
big as the modem, right?
Mhm.
And then I do a bunch of talking conference. Maybe you can cross my path on the conference floor.
Sylvain, a pleasure. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amin, for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's edition of Reliability Rebels. Until next time.
Check one, check two.
Reliability Rebels.
Check one, check two.
Reliability Rebels.
Check, 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 check.